Hello.
Hi,
Yeah,
am I audible?
yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, welcome to our 11th niche conversation of 20 of our second season. I'm Jessica DeWitt. I'm one of the editors here at the network in Canadian History and Environment. And today I am joined by Tathagata Som. Do you want to tell us more about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm a PhD candidate in the Department of English at the University of Calgary, and I am currently working on eco-criticism in South Asia, and especially I'm looking at novels from the Sundarbans region of West Bengal and Bangladesh.
Awesome. Yeah, so in December, we published a piece by you called The Place of the Planet, Climate Change and Migration in Gosha's Gun Island, which was also based on a presentation that I saw you give in the summer at the American
Right.
Society for Literature and Environment. So I thought we'd talk about that a bit today. And I thought we'd start off by talking about what is place-based belonging and why do you think that that is incompatible with the realities of climate change?
Yeah. So broadly, place-based belonging, idea of belonging is that one's identity is determined by the piece of land one occupies or possesses, and this has been the dominant uh, mode of thinking when it comes to uh, belonging and identity for a long time. But the thing is, this idea of belonging is based on the belief that the climate is stable. So we see the development of civilizations and occupation of lands after the end of the last ice age, some uh, 10 to 11,000 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, vast tracts of land became accessible for agriculture to flourish, and permanent people started to settle permanently. And even within this period, so from the last ice age to present day, which is known as Holocene,
Mm-hmm.
there are some local very disturbances of climate. So, for example, uh, the Little Ice Age of
Yeah.
16th and 17th centuries. And if you look at human history, the history of the species, human beings have been moving in response to changing climates for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
The problem with place-based idea of belonging, and I'm taking the example of the refugee crisis in Europe, for example,
Mm-hmm.
is that it sees human migration as an extraordinary, unnatural event. So that is why we had the concept of refugee quote unquote crisis, right?
Yeah.
So this is not normal. Uh, and this also gives rise to two ways of thinking about refugees and migrants. One is demonization of these people, as we come across in right-wing rhetoric, like these people are a threat to our national security on the one hand. Now, on the other hand, uh, we have people who want to help these people, but also try end up victimizing them,
Mm-hmm.
portraying them as helpless people who need to be rescued in some way. Instead of that, if we move away from this place-based idea of belonging, I think we can begin to see these people as uh, like any other people who are responding to climate change,
Mm-hmm.
something that we as a species have been doing for a long time,
Yeah.
right? So that is where I think we need to rethink place-based idea of belonging in this time of climate change.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I, what you're saying is just making my head like turn and all these ideas in my head and a lot of, I'm a scholar of parks. And I was thinking about, how many Western institutions like parks are built on this idea that the land will not change, right? We build a park so that we can keep it the same forever. And how climate change, and other ecological factors make that reality like it's not possible, right? We have to be more flexible. Um, and yeah, just this idea of flexibility and yeah, the lack of demonization, and that this is migration is a natural thing if we're gonna um, yeah, and yeah, it's very interesting, and I really appreciate your writing on it. um, so as I mentioned in my introduction, this piece was based on looking at Gosha's Gun Island. So I
Right.
thought we'd move into talking about how Gun Island is a response to forced climate migration.
Yeah, a good question. So, what Ghost does in this novel, Gun Island, is that he uh, gives us two settings and two lines of plots. One
Mm-hmm.
plot line involves is and the setting is 17th century Bangladesh, Bengal, and it talks about the gun merchant uh, who, during the Little Ice Age, because of the climatic disturbances of the Little Ice Age, uh, uh, moves from Bangladesh or Bengal, uh, from that place to Western India, then Middle East, then Egypt, and finally to Venice. And the second plot line involves it. The setting is present-day Bangladesh and the Sundarban region of
Mm-hmm.
West Bengal and Bangladesh. And there we have a fisherman called Rafi and his lover Tipu, who are uh, moving along similar lines, taking similar paths, and moving from uh, Bangladesh to Venice. In this timeline, the present timeline, Rafi and Tipu pay human traffickers to move them illegally through the borders of multiple countries: India, Pakistan, Iran, Turkey, and finally they arrive in Venice.
Mm-hmm.
By linking these two narratives, Host makes the case that this is how human beings respond to climate change, right? So, on the one hand, we have this representation of migration as a normal and natural human response to climate change. And also goes makes this point, and he actually develops this point in later books like the Nutmeg Scars, which was published last year.
Mm-hmm.
That if you really want to solve the refugee crisis, you have to solve climate change. So you cannot expect not to have refugees when the climate is changing, because human beings will move in accordance with climate change.
Yeah.
And so creating borders or stricter border security forces is not the answer. The answer is a stable climate. And secondly, he also, this is one response to the ongoing discussions about migration and refugee crisis in Europe. And the second one is Coase uh, portrays Rafi and Tipu as agential human beings
Mm-hmm.
who are not demonized, or like as we see their narrative of the events, we see that they're agential. They take loans, gather the money, pay human traffickers, take risks. So in that sense, it also tries to bypass, because in most of these uh, discussions about refugees and migrants, their voices are not heard that much, right? Because everything is based from a very sedentarist point of view, from the point of view of policymakers of nation states, and the discussions revolved around whether these are threats or not, and we do not see them as human beings who are responding quite naturally to the kind of problems they're facing due to changing climate and other factors as well.
Mhm.
So all they want, or what Ruffy and Tipu want in the novel, is a decent life free from exploitation and climatic and economic uncertainties. So yeah, so these are the two ways in which Cose's novel responds to this ongoing discussion about climate change and migration.
Mhm. Yeah, I really appreciate this discussion. I haven't read this novel yet, but it's now on my reading list, and just the power of literature to really bring these ideas, make them tangible, and stories are so powerful, and teaching and making it possible to understand these broader concepts and broader issues. Um, yeah, it's great. So as I mentioned, or as you mentioned, you're a scholar of the Sundarbans, and also Ghosh's novel is about that. And you were able to recently visit, I assume again. And I'm wondering if you could talk a bit about how being able to experience a landscape firsthand helps enrich your scholarship.
Yeah, this is a very good question. So in literary studies, which is my field, we are not used to doing field work because for right reasons. We are not. We are more focused on analyzing the representation of reality,
Mm-hmm.
and in order to analyze the relationship between the representations and realities, we depend on other scholars in other fields, for example, climate scientists,
Yeah.
historians,
Mm-hmm.
sociologists. And I think that is a very important thing that we do because, like, and we are quite specialized in analyzing the representations, how the reality is represented in fictional work. And in some cases, it's not even possible to actually visit the places. For example, someone working in early modern literature, right?
Yeah.
Cannot visit early modern Europe. But a case could be made for eco-critics who are um, dealing with contemporary literature, as I deal with contemporary novels,
Mm-hmm.
about a particular environment. I think there, uh, having first-hand knowledge of the reality of the environment, and then I try to analyze that uh, when it comes to representations of it, might be helpful. And in environmental humanities, we are very critical of instrumental knowledge that reduces the complex web of life uh, to facts and data.
Mm-hmm.
So, in that sense, also, to be affected by an environment, I think is important. Now, during my uh, trip to the Sundarbans in December, uh, I came across first of all, it was an I was affected by the environment,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the Sundarbans is not, and Coast wrote it somewhere, is not a very spectacular place. It does not offer spectacles,
Mm-hmm.
right? The tigers are hidden mostly
Yeah.
in the dense mangrove forest. And it's almost impossible to enter the forest. So you have to take boats and take the waterways that crisscross the forest. And it's a very different experience if it's like it's near evening and on both sides you have this dark mangrove forest and you're on this boat and the only sound is the sound of the boat, right? And perhaps some birds, and chances are you are being observed by the tiger, but you cannot see the tiger. So that's the kind of eerie feeling, which is like, as I was saying, I was affected by the environment in a way. But also I learned some practical things that I wouldn't have. For example, identifying the mangrove trees That's interesting. Another thing that I really that uh, made me think is the sharp contrast between the urbanite tourists,
Mhm.
mostly coming from Kolkata, and the local people engaged in the ecotourism industry, and the frictions that take place there in terms of class divide.
Mm.
That's very interesting, and I do not know how that will impact my writing, but I definitely try to incorporate that experiential knowledge in my writing so that it's not just facts. Or it's good to have secondhand scholarship,
Yeah.
but also to incorporate that with first-hand accounts. I
Mhm.
think that's
Yeah.
really important.
Yeah. I really appreciate that, both your reflection on the personal as well as the broader of how place-based, experience filters into environmental humanities. And I kind of never thought about environmental humanities kind of relying on these other fields for these more firsthand accounts and stuff, And as an environmental historian, I'm an environmental historian of the 20th century for the most part. So it's much easier for me to experience the environments that I've written about, right? And I think that's also a conversation that environmental historians have had between people who do early modern history and people who do contemporary history. Does contemporary history more valuable because they're able to visit the places and all those kind of questions. And I think your answer and response kind of enriches that and makes me think more about it. So I want to thank you for providing that and for joining me today. This was really great. I really enjoyed it. And yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, great. Yeah, so everyone check out The Place of the Planet. It was published back in December. Pretty easy to find on our website. You can also find it through our climate change tag on the website. So thanks everyone, and thank you for joining me. Take care. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.